Aubrey Klein hesitated at the towering glass doors of the boutique, her fingers tightening around the strap of her modest purse. The warm chatter and soft classical music seeped through the entrance, hinting at the elegance within. She swallowed her doubts, stepped inside, and was instantly surrounded by polished marble floors so smooth they reflected the gleam of crystal chandeliers overhead. The air was rich with the scent of exotic perfumes and the faint leather of high-end handbags displayed with surgical precision behind glass cases. Aubrey's eyes flicked over rows of designer dresses hanging like priceless jewels, each couture gown separated by velvet ropes that gleamed under discreet spotlights. Her faded jeans and simple white blouse marked her as an outsider amid the sea of satin dresses and tailored suits. Worn flats tapped softly against the marble as she moved carefully, avoiding the gaze of perfectly manicured shoppers who glanced at her with subtle disdain. Whispered comments floated on the air. Who let her in here? Does she even belong? Carried more in looks than words themselves. The sting was sharp but buried beneath her composed exterior. From behind the lacquered counter, a young clerk observed Aubrey carefully. Her eyes flicked to the scuffed sneakers, the unpolished purse, the casual slump in Aubrey's posture. Not a flicker of warmth crossed her perfectly made-up face. The clerk's lips curled just slightly, a quiet judgeful smile that did not reach her eyes. Two customers nearby exchanged knowing looks and snickered loudly. One called out, loud enough for Aubrey to hear, "Lost, darling? The discount aisle is the other way." The waves of laughter rippled outward as Aubrey swallowed hard, the boutique's gilded world suddenly feeling impossibly distant. The clerk approached Aubrey with a measured, practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her tone clipped but polite, as if reciting lines taught during training. Her gaze drifted coldly from Aubrey's faded jeans up to her unadorned face and back down, silently cataloging every detail as if deciding whether Aubrey was a curiosity or a threat to the boutique's pristine image. Aubrey forced a smile, steadying the tremble in her voice. "I just wanted to browse, if that's okay," she said softly, nearly whispering the last word, aware of how distant she seemed from this world of fabric and glitter. The clerk's lips curled into a thin smirk. "This boutique is for serious buyers," she said, projecting loud enough for several nearby customers to hear. "Maybe you should come back when you're better dressed." Gasps and titters rose instantly from the small cluster of shoppers who were now clearly invested in the spectacle. Some whipped out phones, cameras secretly raised to capture every moment. One woman, wearing a bright silk scarf and jeweled stilettos, leaned over toward her friend. "Isn't it adorable? Trying to play at high society in faded jeans and flats." Her voice was dripping with contempt. Another voice joined, a man with a designer blazer and a sharp haircut, sneering, "Do you think she even knows what she's looking at? Probably misplaced." The crowd chuckled and whispered, the warmth of camaraderie rolling around them like a wave that left Aubrey stranded on a tiny island of shame and confusion. She squeezed her purse strap tighter, the knuckles turning white. Aubrey's heart hammered unevenly, a mix of embarrassment and disbelief crashing at once. She had walked in quietly, without fanfare, simply to enjoy a few moments surrounded by beauty, and now this public rebuke was unspooling rapidly, leaving her frozen under the harsh spotlight of judgment. Her breath hitched once, twice, but she forced herself to keep standing, feet rooted to the marble floor as if it were the only anchor to something real. "I'm sorry," she said softly, voice trembling despite her best effort. "I didn't mean any trouble." "Oh, there's trouble all right," the clerk said, hands planted on her hips. "You don't belong here. We can't have people like you disrupting the atmosphere." Her voice called out, sharp and clear. Several onlookers began filming the encounter, their phones raised like weapons, each click and tap amplifying Aubrey's humiliation. Whispered insults and cruel laughter filled the air. A tall woman with an expensive fur stole winked at her companions and murmured, "Look at her clutching that old bag. How quaint." Aubrey's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth as if to speak again, but the words caught in her throat. Her fingers twitched awkwardly at her sides, trying to find something, anything, to ground her in this storm of scorn. The only thing solid beneath her was the polished marble that reflected the scene above like an unforgiving mirror. As the episode dragged on, an employee from security stepped forward, prompted by the clerk's quiet nod. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," he said in low tones, trying to sound professional but carrying the heavy weight of dismissal. "No, please," Aubrey managed, the politeness threading through her plea barely enough to keep the edges of her dignity intact. "I'm just here to look." The security man's jaw clenched, but his expression softened slightly. "It's company policy." "I'm sorry." Without waiting for resistance, he reached out, gently but firmly touching her arm. Suddenly, Aubrey's body tensed like a coiled spring. Her breath caught sharply, and a flush of anger flickered in her eyes. But just as quickly as it came, she swallowed it back down. The room spun slightly as she was guided toward the ornate exit, every step heavy with the weight of the silent judgment raining down on her. As she walked past the patrons, those same faces that had twisted from curiosity to mockery to disdain, Aubrey's gaze flickered over their cold expressions. No one offered a hand, a kind word, or even an apologetic glance. Cameras continued to whirl, capturing the moment she was cast out. She paused briefly at the door, heart breaking inside, and looked back. The clerk stood smugly behind the counter, her posture perfect, radiating an air of victory. A few patrons whispered excitedly, relishing the spectacle. Aubrey's lips pressed together as tears threatened to spill, but she blinked rapidly and swallowed hard. She turned and stepped outside, the quiet hum of the busy street contrasting sharply with the gleaming, suffocating world she had just left behind. The cool air brushed against her flushed cheeks as she gripped her purse, remnants of dignity still clinging despite the harsh treatment. Aubrey's mind raced, feelings of defeat mingling with something fiercer, a spark she barely acknowledged yet, a hunger to prove there was more to her than the faded jeans or the absence of designer labels. But amidst the chaos of emotions, one fact was chillingly clear: no one in the boutique had cared enough to stand by her side. The exclusion was total, the humiliation public, and the loneliness complete. Back inside the boutique's sleek, climate-controlled world, the clerk named Serena retreated to the staff lounge, a fortress of glossy white countertops and minimalist decor far removed from the glittering display rooms. She leaned against the marble bar, a self-satisfied smile playing on her perfectly painted lips. Her eyes gleamed with the conviction of one who believed she'd just protected something precious. "Did you see that?" Serena asked a colleague, the amusement heavy in her tone. That faded denim disaster thought she could waltz in and ruin the ambience. She paused, her smirk deepening. "I had to make sure she knew she didn't belong. We can't just let anyone in here, this boutique is exclusive for a reason." Her coworker nodded, a blend of agreement and relief washing over her. "Yeah. If the wrong person gets the wrong idea, it could ruin the brand's reputation. We have to keep standards." There was no hint of remorse, only pride. Serena's voice softened, almost confiding. "People like that, imposters, have no respect for the place, the art, the luxury. I don't mind being the one who keeps them out. It's about preserving everything the boutique stands for." The memory of Aubrey's hesitant steps and simple attire flashed through Serena's mind, tinted now only by disdain and a sense of triumph. She was convinced she had done the right thing. Meanwhile, outside, Aubrey sat on a cold, concrete bench across the street, the evening shadows beginning to stretch. She stared down at the sleek black envelope she had withdrawn from her purse earlier, a personal invitation embossed with gold lettering bearing her name, an emblem of a prestigious event inside the boutique. The contradiction wrapped itself tightly around her chest. Here she was, cast out like unwelcome dust, holding the key to a gathering she was meant to be part of. Her fingers trembled, and she blinked back, fresh tears attempting to form. She swallowed hard and straightened her posture, willing herself to breathe steadily. She wasn't about to let one humiliating moment define her. Not here, not now. Suddenly, the muted click of heels approached, and an impeccably dressed woman stepped into view. She held a tablet in her hand and wore a look of focused determination softened by kindness. "Aubrey Klein?" she asked, voice low but clear. Aubrey rose immediately, tucking the envelope carefully into her purse. "Yes, that's me. I'm Clara." "The event coordinator," the woman said, offering a gentle smile. "We've been looking everywhere for you. The owner specifically requested you be brought in right away. It's time for the keynote." Aubrey blinked in surprise, her entire body buzzing with confusion and growing hope. Before she could respond, another figure emerged alongside Clara, a tall, imposing man in a tailored suit, his earpiece barely visible. He scanned the crowd nervously as if flanked by silent guardians. Behind them, near the boutique's entrance, several photographers and security personnel had begun gathering, murmuring among themselves and adjusting their cameras, sensing that something noteworthy was unfolding. The crowd inside, still buzzing with the earlier insult, slowly began to quiet, glancing toward the entrance with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The atmosphere shifted imperceptibly but unmistakably as whispers started rippling through the boutique. A ripple of attention circled outward, like the first tremors of a gathering storm. Inside, patrons stopped mid-conversation, eyes narrowing toward the front. Phones ceased tapping, and eyebrows raised. The air tasted suddenly heavier, charged with anticipation. The sharp contrast between the previous cold dismissal Aubrey had endured and this mounting attention was electric. Aubrey's heart pounded louder, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She followed Clara and the suited man toward the boutique's inner sanctum, every step measured but resolute. Despite lingering embarrassment, a flicker of dignity sparked through her. She wasn't just the faded jeans woman any longer. Soon, everyone would have to see her differently. The glittering event space inside the boutique felt alive with anticipation and soft music, the stage set with sleek black and chrome furnishings and illuminated by warm spotlights. A hushed crowd gathered, champagne flutes tinkling in delicate hands, eyes turning toward the entrance as the event coordinator Clara stepped back. Aubrey Klein emerged confidently, her worn jeans and simple blouse a striking contrast to the couture gowns pulsating quietly around her. A murmur swept through the room like wildfire. That woman, the one they'd sneered at, cast out moments ago, was now the center of attention. The boutique owner herself, a statuesque woman with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, approached the podium, her eyes shining with respect and something deeper. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced crisply, "allow me to introduce our keynote speaker and one of the visionary talents behind our exclusive new collection, Aubrey Klein." The name ricocheted through the room, a whisper and then a roar of stunned disbelief. Eyes widened, cameras lifted, phones flipped open as attendees hurried to capture the moment. Guests who had earlier exchanged snide glances now stared openly, the atmosphere cracked with shock. Serena, the clerk who had dismissed Aubrey so harshly, stood frozen near the back. Her face lost its confident color, mouth parting slightly as shock rippled down her spine. She blinked repeatedly, unable to hide the slow fading of her smug expression. Around her, echoes of whispered astonishment grew louder. "Is that her? Wait, Aubrey Klein? The designer? She's the brain behind this entire collection." The crowd swirled with rapid conversations, some guests pressing through to offer reluctant apologies, their voices quick and awkward. A well-dressed woman, the same one who called out earlier, approached Aubrey, stammering, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Aubrey received them with calm grace, a subtle smile curving her lips as she shook hands gently but firmly. There was no gloating in her expression, only quiet strength and poise that seemed to lighten the heavy air of exclusion that had filled the boutique just minutes before. Taking to the stage, Aubrey adjusted the microphone with steady hands. "Thank you," she began, voice clear and warm despite the room's charged energy. "I appreciate your welcome and the opportunity to share what we've created. Many of you may have only just met me, but my work reflects a simple philosophy: elegance and creativity should be accessible, sincere, and inspired by real life." A glimmer of vulnerability flickered in her eyes as she continued, "I dressed plainly today because I believe success isn't measured by labels or appearances. After returning from a recent trip abroad that reignited my passion, I wanted to step into this gathering as myself, without pretense." Her words settled like balm over the crowd, softening previously harsh judgments. The stark contrast between Aubrey's grounded honesty and the boutique's ostentatious exclusivity was palpable. She embodied a quiet rebellion against the snobbishness that had so quickly dismissed her. Whispers of admiration spread as she unveiled sketches of her designs, clean lines, thoughtful details, and a celebration of understated beauty. The energy shifted entirely, the guests leaning forward, captivated not just by the garments but by the woman who had created them. Serena, standing near a display window, could feel the magnitude of her mistake crushing down. Her face paled further as colleagues whispered behind her back. Her earlier confidence evaporated into a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. She looked at Aubrey not as an outsider now, but as someone who had quietly rewritten the rules of this rarefied world, and exposed the futility of superficial judgments. In the final moments of the presentation, Aubrey glanced around, absorbing the faces in the crowd. The earlier scorn seemed a distant memory beneath the now joyous applause that filled the room. She stepped down from the stage with grace, her poise unshaken, every step underscoring her inner strength. The boutique, with all its opulence and tradition, had become a stage for change, sparked by a woman who dressed simply, but whose presence spoke loudly of integrity and achievement. The event's atmosphere was forever altered, charged with a newfound respect and an unspoken acknowledgement. In this world, elegance is more than fabric and labels. It is character, courage, and authenticity made visible. The boutique owner stepped forward, her voice cutting through the lingering applause like a sharp blade. "Before we proceed," she said firmly, "there is a matter that must be addressed." Her eyes locked onto Serena, the clerk whose judgment had sparked a moment of shame earlier in the evening. The room fell silent again, anticipation twisting into tension. "Serena," the owner continued, her tone crisp but measured, "your behavior toward Aubrey Klein was not only unprofessional but deeply disrespectful. This event, and our boutique, honor creativity, talent, and inclusion. Your actions contradict everything we stand for." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Serena's cheeks flushed scarlet as she stood alone, the weight of the accusation pressing down on her. The confident smile she once wore was gone, replaced by a stunned, vulnerable expression. She swallowed hard, glancing around to find no sympathetic faces. The hubbub of whispered gossip and sidelong glances among the guests was unmistakable. She was now the object of collective judgment. The owner raised her hand slightly, silencing the murmurs. "We will be temporarily pausing this event to review our staff's conduct. Our standards for professionalism and respect will be reinforced through training. Let this be a reminder that arrogance has no place in our house." The atmosphere shifted palpably as patrons nodded in agreement, many shooting disapproving looks at Serena. Slowly, the mood turned from excitement over the collection's debut to a quiet reckoning. The woman who had once sought to exclude Aubrey now found herself isolated, the focus of stony gazes and whispered critiques. Later, news of the incident spread beyond the boutique's walls. Social media buzzed with comments about the clerk's brusque dismissal of Aubrey, many condemning the blatant elitism on display. Photos and clips of the confrontation circulated widely, triggering backlash against Serena's behavior. Confronted with the consequences, Serena faced mandated sensitivity training and professional reprimand. The sting of public disgrace was sharp, and her career was now on an uncertain path. Time passed, and the boutique resumed its glossy rhythm, but an invisible line had been drawn in the marble floors. Aubrey continued to shine as a key figure within the company, her designs celebrated and her presence respected. One afternoon, as Aubrey moved through the quiet corridors of the boutique's back offices, she came upon Serena. The clerk's eyes dropped immediately, her posture tight with unease. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Aubrey offered a soft, understanding smile. "Serena," she said calmly, "we all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward." Serena looked up, a flicker of relief and gratitude crossing her face. She nodded, words failing her. Without another word, Aubrey turned and walked on, her steps measured and sure. She was a woman transformed, not by the clothes she wore, but by the dignity she carried. Outside the boutique's grand doors, the soft murmur of the bustling city filled the air. Guests and passers-by alike glanced at the luxurious building, the whispered tales of the evening still fresh in their minds. Inside, the boutique felt changed, no longer just a temple of exclusivity but a space aware of its own flaws and open to growth. Aubrey Klein disappeared down the polished steps with quiet confidence, the sunlight catching her plain blouse in a soft glow. The crowd behind watched in stunned silence, the memory of her grace lingering like a quiet revolution. In that moment, the boutique and everyone in it had been touched by something far more enduring than fashion, the power of dignity, resilience, and humility made visible.